only appropriate that we start with this prayer, because today particularly we are going to read about the duties of a brahmachari in a gurukul. This is the second chapter of the Manusmriti that I am going to take up today. Some of the issues occurring here have been touched upon by me.
I want to ask only one question. In Gurukul, ladies are allowed?
Well,
Get
which
education
Gurukul? And which period?
Yeah.
Which period? See,
These are the
last
basic
time, these are very
questions, yeah.
important, significant questions. But again, as I said last time, when you ask a question with reference to India, Indian culture, Indian history, we need to know which period, which place are we trying to talk about. And when we look at Indian culture, we should know that we are talking of something which spans over a period of 5,000 years. 2-4 दिन की बात नहीं है कि आप इस पीरियड में ऐसा था. It's a 5,000 year old, maybe more. I'm saying 5,000 because that is conventionally said. I have no guarantees about whether it's 5 or 10. It could be anything. So when we are looking at history of such a long period, we should be very careful about asking questions and about giving any replies. Now I will stick to this text that I have, not go anywhere else. In fact, I had this in my mind that this text is going to throw up many controversial questions. So we will keep our last session to talk about some more controversial issues. In these next 3 or 4 sessions, we'll just read what is here. As far as this text is concerned, there are no women in the Gurukul. In the Manusmriti that we have, there are no women.
That's why, sir, I want to know what is the relevance of today's era. If I am going to learn this thing from this very class, so why I am reading this?
Yes. That again is a very relevant question. See, when we look at a text, it is also placed in a certain history. Now, history of a period, of certain events may not have any direct relevance for us, but there could be many other ideas scattered around which can be of some relevance. The whole question of the very relevance of Manusmriti, as we said last time, is, the relevance of Manusmriti is being questioned. There are people who want to burn it, and they do burn it. So is Manusmriti totally irrelevant for us? Should we burn it and bury it? That's the question. Now, having read it a couple of times, I don't think there is a need to burn and bury it. Because in the Dharma Shastra tradition, they keep burying texts themselves. You don't have to do anything. This bit you must please try to appreciate when we are reading Dharma Shastra, that our Dharma Shastra is a constantly evolving Dharma Shastra. It has constantly changed, it has constantly adjusted itself to newer situations, and therefore there is no insistence on sticking to any particular text. So therefore, when we talked about Vedas last time, we talked about Smritis, they're innumerable. When you talk of customs, there are innumerable. So therefore, Dharma Shastra has given me the sense, and I want to share it with you. The sense that I get from the Dharma Shastra is, you have the freedom of choice. Choose what is appropriate to your time and place, desh and kal. Whatever is irrelevant, forget it. Don't talk about it. The problem with it, I have this today in my discussion. What do I do when I come across a text, a line or a shloka which I find to be extremely obnoxious? बिल्कुल नहीं चाहिए, इसको फेंक दो, आग लगा दो. What do I do? What does Dharma Shastra do? Dharma Shastra keeps quiet about it. It says, pick up a rule, choose a rule which is relevant to you. Why do you, look at now what is the Prime Minister claiming? We have done away with 1,500 laws. And when the Constitution of India was adopted, when any new law is adopted, the earlier ones go dead themselves. So that is how any moral system, legal system, any normative system will evolve. And therefore, If Manu Smriti has not talked of women in Gurukul, doesn't matter. I will not ask Manu whether women should go to a Gurukul or not.
But
Yes, ma'am.
is it prohibited there? There is no prohibition.
Ma'am, there may be no specific prohibition, but the entire environment that you have created does not appear to be very welcoming, or doesn't refer to them at all, I would say. There may be no prohibition, but they are not being referred to as members of the Gurukul. So, what does one do? I mean, there are people today, if I can dwell upon this for half a minute more, I will even take the risk of saying that any norm, social, moral, whatever, has to be seen in a context. If somebody says, I am not going to send my daughter to school, instead of abusing that fellow, try to investigate under what circumstances is he not going to send his daughter to school. If we say, even men should not go out at night in Delhi, what? Because Delhi has become a very, very insecure place. So these things have to be seen in a context, and I am going to stick my neck out and say, even the worst of rules, even the worst of customs have their validity in their limited place and time and situation. So dowry, why is dowry bad? Some people will say dowry is bad, but for some people dowry becomes so extremely necessary because without taking the son's dowry, they will not be able to marry their own daughters. So please put it in that context. And instead of abusing any custom, abusing any culture, I would say let us try to see the social, historical, political situation which gives rise to and supports and nourishes what we call obnoxious customs and practices. So instead of abusing the text, instead of abusing the person, I will say let us see what are those circumstances, let us try to address those circumstances, and let us try to change those circumstances and see if something better can come out of it.
Before we, the fundamental rule is that we are now at the beginning stage. We have not even a hint of what this Manusmriti is.
Contains.
So what I was thinking is that without being judgmentative, it's only an inquiry, without coming to a conclusion of right, wrong, correct, incorrect, appropriate, inappropriate, that I think we should postpone till we study the subject.
Yes.
After we study, only then we will have a knowledge and understanding.
Okay. Yes.
For the present, I think
Let's just
just
stick to the
go
text.
to the text and postpone the.
Yeah, that's why I said
Decision-making
that's what I said. I want to raise some of these controversial issues
At the end of it.
At the end of it, probably in the last lecture. But these kind of questions will keep popping up. So I think it is necessary to put them in a certain perspective, even in the beginning itself. So now, chapter 2 is what we are going to look at today. I've got this translation. Seems to be reasonably good. I don't know who's done it because I simply downloaded it and it doesn't attribute it to anybody. So obviously somebody must have done it. Bimli, pata hai kiski hai ye translation? 249 verses in this section. Some of these things we have talked about, and we will keep on talking about these things. They will keep recurring. So topic number 1, dharma, need for a balanced life, which we talked about last time. 3, purushartha, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, all 4 important. Sources of dharma, Vedah, Smriti, Sadachara. Sadachar is what I am going to talk about some other time also. Then let's come to the third section is Adhikari. Who deserves to read this text? Adhikari. Adhikari in contemporary Hindi means an officer, but in Sanskrit, Adhikari means somebody who has been assigned a particular job or a duty. So Adhikar is almost duty, not right.
वैसे तो सर मीमांसा में अधिकार का मतलब फल होता है और उस फल का जो भोक्ता होता है वो अधिकारी होता है।
वो तरीका है कहने का,
यही
वो कहने का तरीका है। Who deserves to read the text? That's the question. Then the fourth section is on sanskaras, which are, it talks about the importance of sanskaras. Some 4 verses I mentioned. Then it talks about the sanskars beginning with jatakarma, namadheya, nishkramana, chudakarma, keshant. And then the more relevant one, that which initiates a person into proper formal education, that is Upanayan. That is topic number 5. About sanskars, I thought we should have a longish discussion. So, as Mr. Narasimhan suggested, instead of going into the pros and cons and appropriateness, inappropriateness, etc., of anything, but the moment we talk of sanskars, many such questions are going to arise. So I've already put a cross at point 4. So we are not talking about it. We come straight to Upanayana. If we just look at the word Upanayana in Sanskrit, it means taking somebody close to. Up means close, Nayanam, taking. So taking somebody close, or taking somebody to some place, taking somebody to some person. It could mean taking a child formally to a school, a gurukul. It could also mean opening up the entire field of education, taking you into education, taking you towards knowledge. So, and one comment which I need to make here is that when we will read many more verses from here, we will realize that Manusmriti is talking of a knowledge society. It is talking of a society or a segment of the society or a section of the society. I don't know if it's talking of the whole society, but at least the segment of the society that it is talking of is a knowledge society, where knowledge happens to be the most important element in life. If I simply refer you to some of the verses which praise knowledge and some of the verses which show the importance of knowledge in a society, I think in the verses that we have, let us look at 206, 207, see what they are.
13.
That means this numbering is different. I'm sorry. That's what it's saying. Some of these numbers matched and some of these don't seem to be matching. Anyway. Yeah, okay, for example, let's look at this. Verse number 139.
2.13.
Yeah, 2.2 means the second chapter. This contains only the second chapter. The verses that I have given you today are only the second chapter. 139. It says that between a king and a snatak, the snatak is the one who has completed his education at a gurukul. So between a king and a snatak, it is the king must honor, yield the place of importance to a snatak. So the snatak, a person who's completed his education at a gurukul, is more important than somebody in political authority. So knowledge is more significant, has to be given a higher place, a higher status than political authority. So that's one element that I could refer you to show why we are talking of a knowledge society. Then again, verse number 136. Verse number 136. Vittam bandhu vaya karma vidya bhavati panchami etani manya sthanani gariyo yadyad uttaram. Vittam, wealth. Bandhu, relationship or a brother. Vaya, age. Karma, your profession. And then comes vidya, knowledge. Etani, these are manya sthanani. These are 5 factors which yield respect. Manya sthana, 5 things which yield respect. So we respect 5 things. We respect wealth. Somebody who is wealthy has a great status, high status in the society. Then our friends, relatives, they receive our love and respect. Then comes age. Somebody who is senior to me in age, I'm expected to respect it. Karma, profession. And we know how professions are arranged in a certain hierarchy even today. So teachers claim to be more respectable than many others. I mean, that was a tongue-in-cheek remark. And then comes Vidya, knowledge. But now you look at it. This is the sequence. Vittam bandhu vaya karma vidya bhavati panchami. And he says, whatever comes later is more important. Gariyaha yad uttaram. Yat uttaram. Whatever comes later is more important than the preceding one. So the hierarchy is now inversed. He starts with wealth, but ultimately wealth turns out to be the least important thing in life. And Vidya turns out to be the most important thing in life. So that is the kind of society that Manusmriti has in mind. The second chapter is trying to build, create. Again, a kind of a tussle between knowledge and authority, political power. That again is suggested in 2:135. 2:135. Brahmanam dashavarsham tu shatavarsham tu bhumipam pita putro vijaniyat brahmanah tu tayoh pita. Between a Brahman who is 10 years old and a king who is 100 years old, they stand in the relationship of father and son. But it's the Brahman who is the father of the Kshatriya, of the king. He's not even saying Kshatriya, but of the king. So, what a Brahman means, etc., what are the special privileges, whatever attached to all controversial issues about Brahmans, we will talk about in our last class. But at the moment, the Brahman that we are talking of here is a Brahman who is devoted to education, to learning, to knowledge. So Brahmanam dashavarsham tu shatavarsham tu bhumipam pita putro vijaniyat brahmanah tu tayo pita. And if you happen to, when you get a chance to read these verses, you will find many more on this issue. So Manusmriti, second chapter, is particularly talking of a knowledge society where knowledge surpasses, supersedes everything else. And therefore, the importance of sending children to the Gurukula. Therefore, the significance of Upanayana. For them, it was very important to preserve the entire knowledge tradition that had already developed by this time. And if you look at the professions which ultimately these people who are attending a Gurukul for almost 25 years, or they go there at 5 and come out at 25, they're at least for 20 years, they're not training to become MBAs. They're not even training to become lawyers probably. Most of them are the people who will be devoted to learning knowledge for the sake of knowledge, for perpetuating, strengthening the same knowledge tradition. So knowledge for the sake of knowledge is what probably is being emphasized. And what kind of knowledge? Manusmriti has a very, it doesn't say much about what these students are going to do in what they're going to study in the Gurukul. Probably they're more there to study the Vedas and the entire Vedic literature. So Samhitas, Brahmanas, Aranakas, Upanishads. This is not a money yielding education that they are undergoing or taking and receiving. That Gurukuls would have probably, again, Manusmriti doesn't say anything about the content except that the students have to learn and practice the Veda. That is what it continues to emphasize, and does not even mention works like or subjects like Arthashastra, does not mention Dhanurveda. We've seen gurus in Mahabharata training their students in using different kinds of weapons. Not a reference to this. Gurus not teaching Arthashastra and Dandaniti and politics. Gurus not even doing Vyakaran and Darshan, ma'am. Not even Vyakaran and Darshan. They're very specialized kind of sciences. And he says, well, they can be studied, but the very limited vision of this text that I have discovered is that it is talking essentially about Vedic education. A study of the Veda. So when do these children go to the Gurukul? The age, the time, age of admission. And the discussion is very interesting. Depends on what the child or probably what the parents want from the child. Let's refer to verses 36, 37, 38, 39 and 40. 36 first. Three different entry ages prescribed for Brahmanas, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. In the 8th year after conception, one should perform the initiation Upanayan of a Brahman. In the 11th year after conception of a Kshatriya, and in the 12th that of a Vaishya. And what are these children doing at home before that? And we will come to this question again. But next verse is important. Brahma varchasa kamasya karyaha viprasya panchame. If the child wants to acquire Brahma Varchas, Brahma Tej, the luster of knowledge of Veda, then he must enter Gurukul at the age of 5. A Brahman child should enter the Gurukul at 5. A Kshatriya child should enter at 6. And a Vaishya child must enter at 8. So the Brahman, instead of 8, comes down to 5. 3 years less. A Kshatriya from 11 11 to 6 and a Vaishya from 12 to 8. So there is these three, if they are Brahma Varchas Kama, if they want the luster of knowledge, the luster of Veda, then they must start early. So early Vedic schooling is what it prescribes. But yes, it is very much, the Manusmriti, the text is so very aware of the personal, family, social circumstances of children that some children may not have the privilege of starting early. So there is an outer limit as well. A Brahman child must be initiated at least up till the age of by the age of 16. Beyond that, not very permissible. A Kshatriya child, not beyond 22. And a Vaishya, not beyond 24. I want you to please just think about why these different ages have been prescribed for. And then I come to my question, what are these children doing at home? A Vaishya sitting at home till 24 and then going to the Gurukul for a year. A Kshatriya sitting at home till 22, going for a year or 2 or 3. What are they doing? I would suggest, I think this is what I want to guess. This is my guess, entirely my guess, not read it anywhere. They're trying to provide different levels of courses. There will be a full-fledged degree course, there's a diploma course, there's a certificate course, and there's a short duration course in Manusmriti.
It's also interesting to see the total duration of learning. For assuming 8th, 11th, 12th and 16, 22, 24, it is 8 years of Brahman, 11 years of Kshatriya and 12 years of Vaishya. Total duration of learning if they enter at 8th year and
Yes, the first years.
the variation.
So my understanding would be, again, that's my submission, my understanding, my interpretation. What is the Kshatriya, what is the Vaishya going to do at 24? Probably this part of the this kind of a course will be just initiating him into some kind of rituals, some important mantras. I don't know what the course content would be. I'm only trying to imagine. At the age of 24, he goes there for 1 year or 2. It's just one, it's a kind of a formality. 2, it's just to pick up something important, maybe a few verses, a few mantras, some little short duration discussions on various issues. That's all. But those who want to have a profounder knowledge are supposed to spend a lot of time there. And the child, a Vaishya child who's sitting at home till 14 or 12, and a Kshatriya child who's sitting at home till 11 is not sitting idle. He is already receiving the training which is necessary for his own profession. So a Kshatriya child would probably be learning Hitopadesh and Panchtantra at home, listening to those stories, learning horse riding, swimming, exercises, physical exercises. So, but Manusmriti is not saying any of these things. It's my guess that, look, otherwise how do you explain this kind of a phenomena that somebody enters so late and etc. So this is entirely my understanding. But there is a certain, the most important thing here that I need to point out is, the more important thing I need to point out here is that these verses 38, 39 and 40 need to be read together. Verses 38, 39 and 40. Let's read them together. 38 gives us the outer limit beyond which Upanan is not possible. Then 39. After those periods of these 3 castes who have not received the sacrament at the proper time, they become Vratyas, outcasts. Excluded from Savitri, that is Upanan, the Gayatri mantra, and they're despised by Arya Garhita, they become Arya Garhit, they're despised by civilized, decent people in the society. And then 40, with such men, if they have not been purified according to rules, let no Brahman ever, even in times of distress, form any connection through the Ved or by marriage. Which means once they pass that age, then no self-respecting Brahman should initiate them, educate them, and worse, they will, poor fellows, they will remain bachelors, they will not be able to get married into decent Brahman families. Others might accept, so we have a chance. Others Brahmins may not have a chance. But that is a kind of a social disqualification attached. And I think that it is very important to remember, it is very important to see the connection between education, marriage, because when we talk of rules of marriage in subsequent sections, we will find that a person becomes qualified for marriage only once he has completed his education. And that education that he is receiving is, apart from this Gurukul education for a Brahman and part Gurukul education for a Kshatriya and Vaishya, they are undergoing training which will make them skilled, qualified to pursue their own vocations and professions. So unless you are professionally qualified, unless you have the basic skills to earn, you are not allowed to get married. So I think that's an important idea which the text promotes, that because marriage means, when we come to Grihastha, marriage is a central institute, is an institutional central to this whole Varna ashram system. Because if we just look at it, out of the 4 ashramas, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyas, out of these 4, only one section has the right to earn. Others are dependents. Brahmacharis don't earn, Vanaprasthis don't earn, Sannyasis don't earn. So this is the only section of the society which indulges in some kind of economic activity, and therefore it has a great responsibility of not only supporting him, the person who is entering Grihastha not only has the responsibility of supporting himself and his immediate family, but the entire community. Therefore, I think it's important to understand why Manusmriti is so emphatic, so aggressive about education, formal education. Because that formal education then gives you the right to become a full-fledged member of the society, community, and more that to take upon yourself the responsibilities that come with marriage. So time, etc. we've talked about. Then the dress code. There is a specific dress code prescribed for brahmacharis. Poor children, they have to live a very frugal life. Now the students demand air-conditioned classes, air-conditioned buses, and parents are also willing to pamper them a lot. But these children are supposed to be living a very, very frugal, simple life. So the kind of dress they are wearing, the 2 parts of the dress, the lower part and the upper part, the Uttariya and the Adhovastra. The only problematic thing which we might take up in our last class, is that it prescribes different dresses for brahmacharis from different castes. The Shudras are not there, just as women, Shudras are not here in the Gurukul. It's only Brahmins, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. He's very clear of that. So even among Brahman, Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, there is a difference in dress. Why is it so? Manusmriti doesn't say anything. Commentators don't say anything. So it is unfortunately left to the imagination of speakers like me, who might be very, very ignorant, but want to make a comment, to say something. I might be totally wrong, but that's what I have been thinking about, not only now, but for several years when I've been reading this text. Why are these brahmacharis wearing a different dress? They're carrying staffs made from the wood of different trees. Their mekhala, the belt, is made with different materials. The upaveet they wear is made with different kinds of threads. I think it is to enable, to let people recognize a Brahman or differentiate a Brahman brahmachari from a Kshatriya brahmachari from a Vaishya brahmachari. Because people were also expected to behave differently with Brahman brahmacharis, Kshatriya brahmacharis and Vaishya brahmacharis. Their status in the society aligned with their caste. So therefore people were expected to behave differently. And therefore, so that from a distance one should be able to identify them, whether it's for the caste of the brahmachari. Therefore different dresses are prescribed. That is my understanding.
Maybe the curriculum also might have some differences between the three.
We still don't know. For curriculum, he's not talking about. I mean, towards when we have come to the end of this lecture, we will make some comments about what ultimately has he said in the second chapter. And even as myself, I am sometimes left wondering, what exactly has he said about the duties of a brahmachari? But then I have an understanding. I have an understanding, some kind of a perception of what he is doing, why he is doing. See, again, if I respond to what you say, he need not be bothered about the curriculum, because he is like a committee. If in our universities and colleges, there is one committee which is entrusted with laying down rules and regulations of the hostel, discipline. That is different from the syllabus committee. So Manusmriti is not the syllabus committee. Manusmriti is the disciplinary action committee. Almost of that kind, but because the purpose is to prescribe how anybody is to conduct himself in the Gurukul or in the society at large. So he's prescribing our dharma as our duty, and which we interpreted last time as my conduct towards other members of the society. So in a Gurukul, he is prescribing the conduct of the brahmacharis. Therefore, he need not be too bothered about the syllabus. Okay. So the dress code is described in verses 41 to 47. I would just, you can read it. You read this section at home. Only one thing I want you to ponder over is verse number 241. Chapter 2, verse number 41. No, sir, not 241, but chapter 2, verse number 41. It prescribes the upper garment. It prescribes the upper garment for these brahmacharis. So, let students, according to the order of their castes, wear as upper dresses the skins of black antelopes, spotted deer, and he goats. That's all. The rest, I'm not interested in. And why I want to raise this issue, particularly draw your attention to the line, is this. When interpreting any line, when understanding any line of a text, we need to give it a sensible, reasonable interpretation. That Mr. Narasimhan will say is the most fundamental principle of interpretation of statutes. Don't give a meaning to a text which makes the text look stupid. Don't give a meaning to the text which makes the author look stupid. So therefore I want only to emphasize this part. I want to draw your attention to this. So it doesn't say that these brahmacharis will wear this upper garment only in winters. It simply says these are the upper garments which they must wear. So I want you to appreciate that you have to give it a limited interpretation and say, look, they will wear it only in winters, not in summers. Or they will wear it only if they are living in a hilly area and not in Delhi. So that's all. So some of the rules may look to be very open-ended, largish, but sometimes we may have to give them a limited interpretation. And similarly, sometimes the rules might look very limited, of very limited significance, very limited reach, but to give it a sensible sense, a sensible interpretation, we may have to expand the area. For example, we will come to this, but one of the examples I can cite here, I think I mentioned this last time also. While talking of duties of a brahmachari, he says, please move away from the road if there is a fast moving vehicle. Is only a brahmachari expected to do it? Though it comes within that section of the brahmachari, but it cannot be limited to the duties of a brahmachari. Perforce, because it's a rule of common sense, therefore we must interpret it, we must give it the largest possible interpretation. Anybody, everybody, irrespective of caste, irrespective of ashram, irrespective of age, gender, caste and creed, everybody has to follow this rule. So therefore, the principle that I have suggested is that while reading a text like Manusmriti or any other text, we have to be careful about what kind of interpretations we place on them, whether we give them a very limited interpretation or stretch them beyond the meaning suggested by the text itself. That's an important consideration that I thought I should draw your attention to. Then comes the second important part of a brahmachari's life. Under dress code, I have written bhikshatan. So they are living in a gurukul, not paying any fees. They are barred from paying any fees. They are barred from even giving any gift to the guru till they have completed their education. It is only at the time of samavartana that they can give any dakshina. During the period of their education, during the period of their stay at the gurukul, brahmacharis are specifically barred even from giving a gift to the teacher. So how does one take care of the expenses? And that, I think, is a very interesting question for us to address. We are talking of financing of educational institutions, privatization, or whether the government should continue to support these. Manusmriti has no reference to government supported institutions or privately run institutions, but the kind of system that they have developed is that they have made the entire society, the entire community responsible for the running of the Gurukul. So if there is a Gurukul in a certain area, it should become a community supported enterprise. So neither a government supported enterprise nor a privately funded enterprise, but a community supported activity. So education has to be a community supported activity. That's an important point. That's an important idea that I get when I read the Manusmriti.
There is one institution in US, set of institutions in US which does this, which are called community colleges. They run from beyond A+ levels and are provide education for 2 years on vocational skills. And local community or the local government only supports it. Not even the state government. They are called community and the industry supports it. And
Here
they
they're not
provide
even
low cost education over there.
But we're still talking about industry support. You're saying industry support.
Industry and local government, city government.
So you still have private money and government interference. I think Manusmriti is very interesting. I mean, you can say it was a very simple society. People didn't have many needs, but people always had needs. There were princes coming and staying in those gurukuls. So they knew what all luxuries were. And if we read Sanskrit Kavya, we read of such luxurious lives, with kings living in palaces which have 7 courtyards, and when you cross the 7th courtyard, then you reach the king's house, the king's home. So they know what luxury is, and yet they are preferring to put students in a very different lifestyle. Because we have to think together. Why are they doing this? Is it because of paucity of money? Or is it because they don't want private private interference or they don't want state interference. That could be one reason.
Sorry.
That could be a reason. Trying to avoid state interference, trying to avoid interference of private money, and therefore forcibly having a lifestyle which is very. Even the Guruji is living a very simple life. So the students are also expected to live a simple life. So they go around begging for alms. Whatever they need, food, clothes, and umbrellas, whatever things they are required in the Gurukul, they can only ask for bhiksha. It's pretty tough, I can see, for for people like us who have been. We are sometimes we are quite used to some kind of pampering and by our parents. And this, all the Brahmans and Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, all the Brahmacharis are required to go and beg for alms every day. It's a part of their daily routine. So he refers to Bhikshatan at 2 points in the second chapter. Firstly, in verses 49 and 50, and then again in verses 182 to 190. The first two verses, 49 and 50, and 50, this is a part of the Upanayan ceremony. When a child for the first time goes and begs for alms. It says, an initiated Brahman should beg, beginning with request with the word. There is a certain address, some mode of address, how he is going to ask for any alms. So there are 3 words. Bhavati bhiksham dehi. Bhavati bhiksham dehi. Now for Brahman, the order is different. For the Kshatriya, the order is different. And for the Vaishya Brahmachari, the order is different. This again, so that the woman sitting inside her house or home can know whether it's a Brahman Brahmachari who is asking for alms or a Kshatriya or a Vaishya. We will talk about why this kind of discrimination, but it's very much inbuilt into it. But the next one, 50th, is interesting and important. For a little child, 5, 8, whatever, who is going to beg for alms for the first time. Even these children were living with their parents before this. They were being pampered, looked after. They had all the care and love and affection of their parents. And suddenly they are thrown into this world. So it says, Mataram va swasaram va, Matur va bhaginim nijam, Bhiksheta bhiksham prathamam. Ya enam chana avamanayet. The first bhiksha is to be asked from either his own mother, sister, or mother's sister. Mausi has a very unique place in our society. Mausis are supposed to be very, very loving and affectionate. So it's coming from Manusmriti. That's what I like about this text. You said, इसमें relevant क्या है? There's so many nice things you will be able to connect with. Suddenly you will be able to connect with so many ideas, and we will suddenly see how our society is still structured around many of these ideas. Some good, some bad.
मौसी तो बन गया, वो तो मासी,
हाँ.
मासी,
But
मासी
still,
है.
I'm thinking about what ladies can do.
We will come to that. We will come. I am definitely going.
They were debarred from the education
In Manusmriti,
in Manusmriti.
not before that.
Yeah, in the Upanishads they were Rishikas.
So that's why historically देखना पड़ेगा, and therefore, ma'am, we will need some help from historians also in reading the Manusmriti. I mean, as I said, there is no point in abusing Manusmriti and Manu. It is for the historians to tell us what happened between the Upanishads and the Manusmriti. How did the situation in this country change? That suddenly you pushed all women into their homes. What happened? So it's for the historians. Historians उल्टा हमें डांटते हैं, संसद वालों को डांटते हैं, तुम्हारे टेक्स्ट में ऐसा लिखा है, और मैं क्या करूं? तुम बताओ क्यों लिखा है? It's for you to explain, not for me. So this is a point of contention between historians and Sanskritists. Yeah.
Just a clarification. Manusmriti is a descriptive text or a prescriptive one?
I can't answer that
If it is
question. This is both.
descriptive, then what
It has
you are saying
both.
is fine.
It has both. It has descriptive elements and it has prescriptive elements. It has descriptive elements which describe the various things which are happening, and yet it is also prescribing
Is
what
it
ought to be.
perpetuating what is existing, or is it critical also of the situations of the society? That's the problem.
Let's take it for the last lecture. But that's a very crucial point. That's a very crucial point about all Dharma Shastra. One simple answer will be, which I think is a good answer. All normative systems, whether law, constitution, morality, they always believe in perpetuating themselves. Because it's a system which says that look, this is how people have behaved so far, and therefore from this we infer that this is how it should be. So these normative texts, you see, you think contemporary law is very progressive, but there are so many people who are willing to condemn the present constitution of India, which we think is based on democracy and fraternity and all kinds of high sounding political values of which we have received, which we have developed as human beings in the last 200 years. But the whole Maoist structure, the Maoist system, they don't want to demolish this social system, this legal system, this constitutional system that we have created. But many of us believe that look, isse acha to kuch ho hi nahi.
But there is
So
no
that what you are asking is a very interesting question. But my submission is that this question we can always be asked of all systems. And you were not there last time, and I said this earlier also. I said this: don't read a text in isolation. You have to look at the whole history of how an idea or an institution, a convention, a custom has evolved over a long period of time in our country, and it is so therefore the things are going up and going down. It's not moving in a single line. The problem is that last 200, maybe last 1,000 years, 1,500 years, 2,000 years, we have moved in a straight line, probably. But that's not the end of, neither the beginning nor the end of Dharma Shastra. There was Dharma Shastra before this, and there is a Dharma Shastra now which is evolving. It may not be written in Sanskrit. Anyway. So there is no straight answer to the question. So first bhiksha from the mother or the sister or the masi or mosi. Then we come to routine bhiksha. In 182 to 190, there are long, so many rules of bhikshatan. And then on the one hand, you ask these poor children to go and beg for every little thing that they need, including food, and then you put so many restrictions. Look at the kind of restrictions they are placing on them. What are the things that you can get? Let him fetch a pot full of water, or just a pot, flowers, cow dung, mitti, kusha, and food. They're not being asked to get air conditioners and coolers and fans or very nice furnitures, nothing of that kind. So the minimum possible they're supposed to get. And then, so that may just be a kind of illustrative, that's an illustrative thing. So if they need something more, they can probably, but it's just an illustration from which you correctly infer that they're not supposed to demand any luxury goods and goods of comfort. It's just the barest minimum things which are necessary for survival. So they're living at a survival level, not any level of comfort or luxury. So udakumbham sumanasaha goshakrit mrittika kushan aharet, and some more restriction. Yavad arthani. Only as much as you need, not more than what you need tomorrow. No question of storing for future. So just as much as you need, and every day. So it's living from a day to day, getting your things from on the basis of your day to day needs. You get what today, what you need tomorrow. That's all, or what you need today probably. And then, so there is a restriction on the kind of things that you can beg for. Then comes the restriction on the kind of people you can ask for help. So many of the private funding agencies will be thrown out by this criteria. Veda yagyai ahinanam prashastanam swakarmasu. Sorry, I'm sorry. This is 183. A student being pure, etc., shall daily bring food from the houses of men who are not deficient in the knowledge of the Veda and in performing sacrifices, and who are famous for following their lawful occupation. Lawful occupation. Prashastanam swakarmasu. 183. The crucial word is Prashastanam swakarmasu. Swakarmasu, in their own actions, in their occupations, in their professions, who are prashasta, who have a respectable status in their own professions, who are highly respectable people. That means they're not crooks who have made good money. It is prashasta is the crucial word. Prashast means praised, well recognized, or you say honorable. Honorable. Then who else is not to be approached? 184. Guruh kulena bhiksheta. I mean, a child will be so tempted to go and ask for something from the Guru's wife herself. So, it's not going to be that easy. Guruh kulena bhiksheta na gyati kulabandhushu. And not even from the homes of the people who are related to the Guru. Let him not beg from the relatives of his teacher, or from his own, or his mother's blood relations. That's one. If such people are not available, only then they can approach them for any help. So, no easy way out. Not going to Mosi for the second time. It's only for the first time that you're allowed. Not going to your own friends, relatives, people who are known to you, acquaintances, again and again. So go to strangers, not to your own people. Well, if all these are not available, then you can go and beg from anybody. Take help from anybody. They have to be practical, pragmatic. After all, children need food. Children need all the things what different kinds of things to survive. So, 185. Sarvam vapi charayat gramam purvoktanam asambhave. If the earlier ones which have been mentioned are not possible, only then you can go and ask for anybody, seek help from anyone. Even then, niyamya prayatah vacham, how should one beg? Prayatah, totally disciplined, self-controlled, self-managed, and niyamya vacham, controlling one's speech. Because I think what it's suggesting is that though we thought of community support in education, people were not always very kind and generous. Somebody will scold them, somebody will humiliate them. Bhagyo. There these children are supposed to maintain their cool and not answer back and pick up a fight. So, you said it is descriptive or prescriptive. It is both. वो बता रहा क्या हो रहा है दुनिया में. He is aware that not everybody is going to be as helpful. So some people will scold them, humiliate them, and then therefore they have to be They have to control themselves, control their anger, etc. What if a person which at this age, whether they're children in 21st century or first century, they will be naughty. Somebody is going to try to avoid, make excuses. नहीं जाना, तबीयत ठीक नहीं है, मैं नहीं जा रहा, तू चला जा. Somebody is going to boss around. I think he has all these things in mind when he's saying, look, if you don't go, you will be punished very severely. And the punishment for avoiding Bhikshatan is that you will be paraded on a donkey in in the main streets. And the Guruji also has to run his household and take care of all these children. So you can't have children indulging in pranks, all kinds of pranks and mischief all the time. So Guruji is giving them a good threat. Look, you will be paraded on a donkey if you do this. Akritva bhaikshi charanam. I want the next one. 187. Akritva bhaikshi charanam asamidhya japavakam. It also says not doing your routine bhikshatan and not doing your sacrifice. Both things are added, but I am emphasizing more on the bhikshatan function. Yes, you are exempted if you are not well. If you are unwell, you are exempted. But if you are not unwell, anatura, atur means unwell. The word atur here means unwell, sick, and anatur, not sick. So if you have no problems, you are not sick, and then you don't go for begging for alms, then you will have to undergo this punishment. So again, very, very practical. Making a rule is problematic. Making a law is problematic because when you are making a law, when you are creating a law, you have to think of so many possibilities, so many impacts, so many consequences of the rule that you are going to make. So you have your rules, your exceptions and exceptions to exceptions built into the same shloka, in the same verse. And now that children have got some good food, so you go, somebody has a wedding at home, you ask for simple food, but he says, laddu le jao beta, kachori le jao beta. Now what does that, only one beta has got laddu and kachori. The other betas have not got laddu and kachori, so what do? You're not supposed to eat them on the way. Whatever you get, good or bad, you have to pull it before the teacher. The teacher will then distribute, and then you eat. So this would be somewhere in 40, close to 40. I'll just take you to that verse. Verse number 51. Verse number 51. I should have numbered these pages. I should have taken center. Verse number 51. Samahritya tu tadbhaiksham. So many little things, interesting things you will find here. The child is supposed to collect whatever he has, amayaya, without any deception. I mean, we see these children on the street, भूख लग रही है, 24 घंटे भूख लग रही है, throughout the day भूख लग रही है. That's the same. So no बहानेबाजी. Be very clear in your conscience when you go to beg for food. So amayaya, you have to beg for food, whatever you need, with a clear conscience. And then when you get everything, nivedya gurave, This Amaya can be read with Nivedya Gurave. You must give it to the teacher. Amaya without any cheating. Khud khave nahi. Give it whatever you have brought without any element of cheating. Give it to the teacher. And then Nivedya Gurave Ashniyat. He should eat it only after offering it to the teacher. So that's about Bhikshatan. Then we suddenly launch into rules of dining. We launch into rules of dining, which comes almost at the end of this very verse 51. Prang mukha. This is again a problematic thing, but I'm trying to see what it could mean. He says, if you eat facing toward the east, this is what you get. If you eat facing towards the west, this is the result, and so on. So different results on eating while facing different directions. Let's read. 52. Ayushyam prangmukha bhunte. He who eats facing the east gets long life. Shriyam pratyang mukha bhunte. If it turns to the west, he gets wealth. What is it? Yeah. Ayushyam pramukha bhunte yashasyam dakshinam. If you face the south, then you earn fame. Shriyam pratyang mukha bhunte. One who faces south. What is it? This east to where क्या?
West से प्रत्यम to west.
हाँ प्रत्यंग is west. तुमने गड़बड़ किया. Anyway, दो बार इसमें translation में इसे तभी confusion हो रहा है. Translation में problem. So anyway, so 4 different consequences of eating while facing the 4 directions. Now, is it some kind of a jadoo? It's possible. Somebody like some Mimamsak will say yes. There is an adrishta. If you face the eastern direction, some magic happens and you get what is written here. But I will interpret it in a more pragmatic, more practical way. This is my understanding of the text, and I think the text does allow me the freedom to play around with it. I will say it gives me the purpose of eating, the very purpose of life. What do you want in life? That is what you need to have in mind while eating. Eating is not simply a physical or a biological activity. For us, in this Manusmriti, the very act of eating, which is so primary to all living beings, has been converted into a kind of a, if I may use that word, a kind of a spiritual activity. An activity which helps you to live, to survive, and therefore you must have a purpose in life, and when you are eating, you please decide on your purpose of life, and when you eat, you decide or you think that this is why I am eating. I am eating because I want knowledge. I am eating so that I can acquire X, Y or Z. So I think it gives a certain purpose of life, and that is why I would not like to connect it through adrishta and something that will take you to Swarga or something. Then dining manners of dining, the more elaborate, the most important thing is verse number 54. The many I have to skip because of 249 I can't be reading everyone. Verse number 54. Pujaye dashanam nityam adyachaitat akutsayan drishtva hrishyet prasidetcha pratinandetcha sarvashah. One should always worship one's food.
This shloka should be written in all the dining halls.
Let him always worship his food, eat it without contempt, and on seeing it one should rejoice, be happy, and pray that he may always obtain it. Look, they are getting their few morsels of food with such great difficulty. And I think one of the lessons that the author or the system wants children to receive, understand is that look, life, food, comforts, luxuries, you have to really strive for them. They can't be had so easily. And all when you grow up, then you start earning, etc., etc. Then it's a different matter. But even then, as we will see when we look at the Grihastha ashram, even a Vedic Grihastha, even a the Grihastha in the Manusmriti is supposed to live a very disciplined life. He is not asked to splurge. I said the other day I did say that yes, you can have a big house and a big car and whatever you want. I still stand by what I said, and I don't see any contradiction between what I'm saying now and what I said. Do anything, live with the best of luxuries, but provided you are following the path of dharma. So no cheating in your professions, no deception, no shortcuts. With all those warnings, you are allowed to have a good life. No problem with that. So, but food itself, I understand that even today when we know that the 30% people of this country are starving, then all those of us who are privileged to have so much that we have, we really need to be careful about how we behave. So, and this also comes from how do you define who a rich man is in India? A couple of years ago, we had this very huge controversy. 32 paise per day or something is a rich man. That's the level at which we are living now, and probably we were living even then. I don't know, I can't comment on that. But at least this text is making children so aware of the significance of the fact that you're getting food to eat. And therefore, I think he has in mind this. He is definitely contrasting it with the situation of so many others who are not even getting food to eat. So therefore, it is very important for those who are getting things, living a life of comfort and luxury, to have some thought for the poor. I think that is the idea which is somewhere at the back of the shloka. When he says, Pujayeda Shanam Nityam, Adyat Chaitat Akutsayan, and there is some little bit of psychiatry. I've just recently encountered this term, nutritional psychiatry. I'd never heard of it earlier, but it's a very recent discovery, nutritional psychiatry, and it's become a very important branch of learning, at least in the Western America. So, if you are unhappy at looking at the food that you got to eat, then your body refuses to secrete certain kinds of juices that are required for digesting all the nutrients in that food. So I think they have the sense. They may not know nutritional psychiatry, but as people they know life, they have experienced things, and therefore from their experience at least they can say that look, be happy about whatever you are getting. So it's a social message, and also I think something to do with nutritional psychiatry. Pujitam Yashanam Balam Nityam Urjam Chayachati. He's saying that openly, very, very clearly in the next verse, 255. Food that is worshipped gives strength and vigor.
Eaten irreverently.
But
Later portion will be अच्छा.
But eaten irreverently it destroys both. Because once you appetite is gone, and then you can't eat, and then consequences follow. So, Pujitam Yashanam Nityam Balam Urjam Chayachati Apujitam Tutadbhuktam Ubhayam Nashayedetam. And these are important messages not only for the brahmacharis but for everybody. Therefore, again, I'll remind you, though this mantra, though this shloka comes in the context of a brahmachari's duties, it has a universal application. It can't be restricted to brahmacharis.
Like to break for 5 minutes.
Others might want to. पानी मुझे ग्लास है
गिलास लेना बोतल तो लाया
मैं
था।
गुरुकुल में पढ़ी हूँ और इनमें से बहुत सी बातें तो अभी भी फॉलो होती हैं। खासकर अन्न का एक दाना खराब नहीं करना है।
हाँ इसी में दे देना। कोई नहीं, इसी में पी लेंगे, 2 बार ले लेंगे
ये
तो।
घर वाले हमको बताते थे, हमारे ग्रैंडफादर वगैरह, खाना छोड़ना तो बहुत बुरी बात आज भी कई लोग।
आईआईटी बॉम्बे के हॉस्टल में फाइन लगता है बच्चे।
आजकल तो वो
Together they
पार्टी में
find-
जाते हैं, इतना हीट लगा के
कहीं
आधा
रेस्टोरेंट भी है, कहीं रेस्टोरेंट में भी ऐसा है कि वहाँ खाना छोड़ नहीं सकते, ऐसा कहीं पता नहीं
वो
कहाँ।
कॉन्सेप्ट है।
मैंने 3 दिन भिक्षाटन किया।
हमने भी किया हुआ जब उपनयन संस्कार होता
नहीं
है।
नहीं ऐसा नहीं, प्रॉपरली
Then what age?
15 साल की मंदिर है जहाँ
पिछले हफ्ते भी दिया था।
व्यास भगवान थे वहाँ पर